Ladies and gentlemen, the conference now will resume. Our next speaker has served in various command and staff positions to include Commander, 3rd Brigade, 2nd Infantry Division, Deputy Commanding General, 4th Infantry Division, and Deputy Commanding General, 3 Corps. He is the current Commanding General of the Fires Center of Excellence. It is my pleasure to introduce Major General Kenneth L. Kamper.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the kind introduction. And I guess I checked. I mean, I think there's like 700 people logged in virtually too, so, or at least registered. I don't know how many are watching. But hey, my name's Ken Kamper, and I'm an American soldier. Thanks to my friend Pat Donahoe for inviting me here. I was kind of shocked. I think it's the first time in a number of years that y'all have let a fires guy in here. I think rightly so. We inherently fight as combined arms maneuver, intel, fires, maneuver, a little sustainment, a little protection. We need some mission command and control. It takes all of us. All my life as a fire supporter, I've been right next to the 3 and the 2 and the 6, integrating fire support for a maneuver commander. My first job in the Army was at Infantry Company FSO in Task Force 268 Armor, Silver Lions, in Baumholler, Germany. Later, I was a Div Cav fire support officer in Fort Bragg with 117 Cav. Later on, an Airborne Battalion fire support officer in Vicenza. Commanded an artillery battalion in 3-2 Stryker Brigade. So because of those experiences and many others, kind of feels like home here in the armor and infantry world. Feels right to be a fires teammate here in the midst of maneuver leaders. One way or another, we're all in this together. So let me share a bit about modernization in the fires arena. And although synergy is an often overused word, there's some synergy going on out at Fort Sill and modernization for our Army. We've got 2 cross-functional teams, air and missile defense and long-range precision fires. We got 2 commandants, FA, air defense artillery. We got 1 seated and 1 .D that remarkably over time stayed as a cross-matrix organizations where folks from TRADOC, folks from Army Futures Command work right next to each other. We never ripped those 2 organizations apart, and it's helped us out over time. We also spent a lot of time with the RCTO, the Rapid Capabilities Office with Lieutenant General Thorogood, both cross-functional teams and both commandants do an awful lot of work with RCTO on the programs. RCTO worries about the M, the material, and for the first time in decades, we find ourselves working hard to keep up across the rest of the DOTML PFP. It's a good problem to have. And then we also work constantly, as many of you all do, with all the PEOs. So it's truly not a stovepiped place. It's truly a team of teams who interact daily to move the DOTML PFP forward. So in all this modernization, some key questions. Modernizing for what? For modernization sake. As General Funk said yesterday, combined arms maneuver across all domains. I think that's what we're all kind of oriented on. Why? To be able to fight and win in large-scale combat operations against near peers or pacing threats. And of course, we don't want to fight, but we need strength to deter. Peace through strength is what we want. But if called to fight and win, how do we fight together at echelon? How do we train together? How do we be ready today and balance that modernization for the future? So I'll jump right into this with some questions. I'll leave time for questions. And we're going to go pretty fast because there's a lot of modernization efforts going on. And I'll say it up front and then at the end. If anybody wants a deeper dive on any of this wave top of modernization, we'll connect with you and I'll do it, or CFTs or commandants, but we're more than willing to engage. Just as the nature of war remains constant for like a couple millennia now, probably since mankind started, as Joe Milley's video touched on yesterday, the character of war changes. The musket to the rifle, rifled artillery, massed artillery, radar, sonar, radio communication, SATCOM, GPS. And then yesterday in this conference, and many of us have heard John Antal over the last year and a half, he spoke about another changing character of war, the effectiveness of UASs in the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the top-down attack of the loitering Group 3 type UASs. And I don't know, when it's a hand grenade on a quadcopter, while that can be tragic, yes, maybe not decisive, but Group 3 UASs with a 50 to 70 pound warhead on a top-down attack, that can be decisive in mass. And so I'll start with air defense, since that's a concern. Do we need counter small UAS capability? Most people would say yes. Who mans it? Is it a maneuver responsibility? Is it just a bunch of kit, counter small UAS kit that we sprinkle down on a division and let the maneuver folks in the division figure it out? Or do we need some kind of new air defense formation that we put counter small UAS kit in? They become a subject matter expert for the things that maneuver squads and platoons are going to use, and they man the more kinetic, longer range stuff. What is KFADS? Anybody heard of KFADS before? Yeah, so that, 2 decades of COIN has brought us out of what KFADS used to be, combined arms for air defense. It's that whole idea where we all lay down on our back and, shoot 100 yards out in front of the fast mover. We used to do that as a battle drill, but it's eclipsed out of our mindset. At some point, maneuver, sustainers, anybody on the battlefield's probably going to have to be back in some kind of KFADS for 2030 and beyond. Do divisions now need a short-range air defense battalion with MSHORAD and counter-small UAS equipment? So for the past couple years, we've been on a path for 4 MSHORAD battalions, the first of which is being fielded to Europe now, a first 4 MSHORAD prototype platoon. It's a striker-based 30 Mike gun with Stinger. The second increment of MSHORAD is a directed energy variant of the Striker with a 50 kilowatt laser. The first 4 prototypes of that MSHORAD DE, directed energy with a laser, are either en route or just arrived to Wyzmir, and they're supposed to land in the 4th of the 60th MSHORAD Air Defense Battalion at Fort Sill later on this year. So what is MSHORAD? What is this thing? This thing, it's a 3-battery battalion. We're viewing it more and more as a divisional air defense battalion with 3 MSHORAD batteries, striker-based, 1 IFPC battery, indirect fire protection capability, and now we think, relatively new, 1 counter small UAS battery that would be the keeper and the subject matter experts of a bunch of counter small UAS kit. Read things like Drone Buster and a litany of other stuff, but then the mobile vehicle systems, M-lids, the Coyote system, and the fixed sight lids, which is really the same thing, just not mounted on a vehicle. So what does MSHORAD do? Defends maneuvering forces against unmanned aircraft, rotary wing, fixed wing threats. We began fielding that capability, currently paid for, programmed, 144 systems, 4 battalions. Inc. 1, existing systems, Inc. 2 laser, Inc. 3 out in the 28 timeframe, a Stinger replacement, and a Prox fuse on the 30 mic. Ultimately, those MSHORAD battalions, think Divisional Air Defense Battalion, will contain a mix of the complementary DE and kinetic interceptor systems. So last year I talked about that platoon. It's in Europe now. They got 4 of them. They're scheduled to get the other 32 systems in 23. So it's a prototype platoon. It's in Europe now. And then there's a gap to learn through the prototype. And in 23, the rest of that battalion will fill out. The other 3 battalions at this point are pointed towards 1st Cav Division, 1st Armored Division, and 1 at Fort Sill with the FORSCOM's 31st Air Defense Artillery Brigade. And it's that battalion at Fort Sill that will receive the first laser prototypes. And we'll do quite a bit of work on that at Fort Sill. So what we've known all along is that 4 active MSHORAD battalions probably is not enough. That's what we've thought all along. And so recently, even over the last 2 weeks, we're now working towards competing 9 divisional short-range air defense battalions in the current TAA process. Those 9 divisional short-range air defense battalions are templated for the 2 JFE divisions, 3 Penn divisions, 1 National Guard, 1 in Europe, 1 in Indo-Pacific, 1 for the 25th, and then that 1 that comes to Fort Sill. What we also realize lately, thanks to John Antal, is that this division air defense battalion needs a counter small UAS battery. And so that's what we're plugging into the force structure for this MSHORAD battalion, which we're now referencing as a divisional short-range air defense battalion. So what we also recognize is that each division needs a set of some counter small UAS kit. Just as recently as last week, with the Major General Sean Gainey out of the joint, the JCO works UAS, small UAS. We're both in front of the chief with what a set of divisional counter small UAS kit would look like. There were a couple options there, and we ended up with approval to proceed 9 of these sets. The first 3 soon, 6 a little bit over time. But those sets, initially, it's about 20 drone busters. It's about 20 of these optics that go on a weapon that lock onto a small UAS and give you a probability of hitting it with a rifle. It's the dismounted kit that can detect and then jam, all of which has been used in theater recently, and it works. It's the fixed sight lids and the M lids, the mobile lids, based on the Coyote system with a kinetic missile. There's a radar, there's a missile, and the missile goes up and explodes next to a UAS. And then there's an EW variant coming where it can fly into a swarm, and with a EW high power microwave, basically drop the swarm. We've seen that in testing, it works, and it's just a matter of time before that's part of the system as well. So that's coming. I already talked to lasers, and so I'll switch now to what is IFPC. So we're talking MSHORAD, we're talking IFPC. Talking MSHORAD, Divisional Short Range Air Defense. IFPC is indirect fire protection capability. We had IFPC battalions programmed for both the active Army and then about to compete in the Guard. What we're now working towards is 9 IFPC battalions, 1 for each corps, 1 for each MDTF. 4 corps, 5 MDTFs competing in this TAA. So what is indirect fire protection capability? If you think Iron Dome, That's a glimpse, a pretty good glimpse of what IFPC is. Think rockets and mortars, think subsonic cruise missile. What we've recognized is that in this IFPC battalion structure, 3 batteries of IFPC capability, 1 battery of counter small UAS capability. So IFPC is on the way. The contract was most recently awarded, and we'll see shortly what that prototype looks like. Think Iron Dome like. Coming soon to a theater near you. I'll go larger now, higher. AI, AMD, and IBCS. So that rolls off my tongue because I've been in the fires, air and missile defense world for a while. But IBCS, Integrated Battle Command System. There's a test going on right now, IOT&E out at Wismar, and it's fundamental. It's a Army and joint program, Army's #1 modernization program. Revolutionary in what it will do for us for air and missile defense. Historically, we've had a Patriot radar linked to a Patriot missile launcher. What IBCS does is gives us the network to enable any sensor best shooter. It's revolutionary, it's an open architecture, it allows for open Army sensors and joint sensors to any shooter, THAAD, eventually, Patriot, and linked to the division and below tactical systems through the FAD-C2 system. So IBCS on the way, revolutionary IOT&Es happening right now. And the last air defense system I'll talk about is LTAMDS. So currently with the Patriot radar, we have a missile that has a longer range than the Patriot radar has range for. So there's this thing we call LTAMDS, lower tier air and missile defense sensor. That is a CFT program, and that is on path. LTAMDS will give us the full capability of the current missiles. So the air defense artillery is modernizing from the tactical level through operational and strategic to win in LISCO multi-domain ops. I'll switch to field artillery. The field artillery is also modernizing across our Army from how we're organized to fight to the tools with which we fight. And I'll just read 2 quotes here. Secretary of the Army Wormuth said AUSA 21, fiscal year 23 will be the year of long-range precision fires. We'll see the first battery of new long-range hypersonic weapons that we've developed with the Navy, as well as PRISM, as well as our mid-range capable batteries, as well as the prototype of extended range cannon artillery. So she said 23 for long-range precision fires. We're calling this year the year for counter small UAS, by the way, recently. Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville, said in March of 21 to a defense writers group, what we want to do as a service is provide the combatant commander multiple options. They can range anywhere from hypersonic missiles to mid-range capability to precision strike missiles, and these systems have the ability to penetrate anti-axis aerial denial defenses, and in the future to sink ships. So how will we have to fight in LISCO? How will the Army at echelon contribute to the fight with the joint force? One thing we know, theaters and corps have a role in multi-domain operations to contribute to the joint force penetration of an A2AD system to open up a window of opportunity for maneuver, and that is only the beginning of the fight. So I'll start high with Theater Fires Command. Theater Fires Command, Theater Fires Element. So we just stood up a Theater Fires Command in Europe. Major General Steve Moranian is there now. It's about a 124-person organization. and then its counterpart, a theater fires element, a staff element in the U.S. Army Indo-Pacific, U.S. Army Pacific, is about a 114-person outfit. What we recognized is at the theater level, the fires capability, the targeting capability, really is about six folks. And so now to fight LSCO, to penetrate A2AD, working with a combatant command, obviously, what does it take to plan the fires, synchronize across the joint services to penetrate A2AD? And we recognize at the ASCC level, Europe, Indo-Pacific, we weren't even able to do it. Theater Fires Command, Theater Fires Element, a lot of debate between the two. They're standing up now, and we'll see over the next year or two what works best. And what we also recognize is it might be different. Might be a little bit different in Europe than it is in Indo-Pacific. But from a fires system, the ability to plan and coordinate fires at the theater level, that's an organization that is in motion, being stood up as we speak. We talk about the multi-domain task force. So what is a multi-domain task force? The first one standing up in Joint Base Lewis McChord now. It's been in existence for over a year now, really only as a headquarters. Headquarters plus what we used to call an I2Qs battalion, we now call a multi-domain effects battalion. Some people describe it as the secret sauce of the MDTF is the intel, information ops, the EW, the space, and the cyber capability that resides in that multi-domain effects battalion. But that's not all it comes with. Then it comes with a long-range fires battalion. And inside the long-range fires battalion, hypersonic battery, mid-range capable battery with Tomahawk SM-6 missiles, and a prism shooter HIMARS battery. And then it has a sustainment battery, or a sustainment battalion, and an IFPC battalion for air defense protection. So that's what the multi-domain task force is. Now it's a task force and it's tailorable, and each MDTF may end up looking a little bit different. And so we'll see how that plays out. We're only gonna field 3 hypersonic batteries is the plan right now, but we're gonna field 5 of these mid-range capable batteries. And so, one MDTF may have 2 of these MRCs in its formation. So the MDTF base headquarters is standing up in Europe just recently, just this past summer. And so now we'll be able to see MDTF as it's still standing up in Indo-Pacific, and we'll see an MDTF stand up in Europe. Now, in MDTF, what does it do? The original O&O orients that MDTF on the A2AD problem set. How will the ASCCs use that MDTF? We'll see. We're already seeing some slight variances between Europe and Indo-Pacific. And so that's how we're gonna learn as they stand up. The MDTF, in this TAA, we're competing to stand up 3 more. 5 full MDTFs is the goal that we're entering the TAA process with. Directed goal by some folks to enter that into the TAA, and we'll see what decisions the Army senior leader makes. The question on MDTFs that we currently have, though, is, what's its relationship to the theater? What we see is the MDTF, probably one works for the theater, each theater, Europe, Indo-Pacific, but then another MDTF could work for a corps, as a JTF. And so we're gonna learn over time, starting with these first 2 that have stood up. Who does it work for? What is the relationship of the MDTF with the theater level what's the relationship of that MDTF with the corps level? What is the relationship of the MDTF with an operational fires command? So that's what we're learning. We'll talk a little bit more about the Long Range Fires Battalion. The first of what is planned to be 3 of these battalions, but may build out to 5 full ones if the MDTFs all go to 5 full MDTFs. There might be 2 more of them. Right now, the template is 3 long-range fires battalions. And I said it once, I'll say it again, a long-range hypersonic weapon battery, a mid-range capable battery with a launcher that's got Tomahawks in it and SM-6 in it. And then a PRISM shooter battery, a HIMARS launcher capable of shooting PRISM. So long-range hypersonics, it's one of the highest priority modernization areas across the Department of Defense. It's part of the Army's #1 modernization priority for long-range precision fires. It's complementary to other long-range precision fire systems in development. The Army is currently prototyping the first battery of long-range hypersonics at Joint Base Lewis McChord. That battery will have its first hypersonic round in 23. And all of that through flight tests is proven to be pretty well on track, subject to potential CR implications, of course. In March of 21, the Army started to give its first equipment to that battery. Next week, that battery will conduct a culminating exercise on tables 2, 4, and 5, using their organic Fortels, the launchers, a battery operations center, and then all the other battery organic equipment. So that is progressing. It's happening as we speak. Mid-range capability, I've talked about it, Navy SM-6 Tomahawk missiles. As approved by the SEC Army, the RCTO, Rapid Capabilities and Critical Technologies Office with Lieutenant General Thorogood, they are on track to deliver the first of those MRCs in 23. The Precision Strike Missile is the Army's next generation long-range surface-to-surface solution for defeating air defense, missile launchers, command and control centers, assembly staging areas, high payoff targets at all possible depths of the battlefield. It replaces the Cold War era ATACMS with an increased range from about 300 to 500, with an objective range on future increments 700 to 800 kilometers. That's been proven out. We've seen flight tests where that is working, and we think PRISM, the initial Inc. 1 of PRISM, will be delivered in 23. Extended Range Cannon Artillery, otherwise known as ERCA. So last year's TAA, we went through the decision of what to do with ERCA. We're going to put it down in make it a DS battalion. We did a lot of track studies. We did a lot of modeling. We think that we need about 10 of these things over time. We made a decision last year on what to do with the first 4 ERCA battalions. 2 of them are going to go active, 2 of them to the National Guard. The first 2 active, 2 pen divisions. ERCA is on track to shoot out to 70K. It's been demonstrated. The first prototype was christened by the battalion out at Fort Bliss, who's going to receive the first 18 prototypes and go through a year-long operational assessment of that prototype battalion at Fort Bliss. So that is in motion. The christening ceremony was in September 21, and the year-long operational assessment will start in FY24. So ERCA is coming soon. to a division near you. IRCA, for example, has already been used in the warfighters, and so we're learning to see how folks fight that capability, at least in the warfighter simulations. We see it as a divisional capability in a DIVARTY at the division level. The other battalions in the DIVARTY would be DS battalions, normally with a habitual relationship with their brigades. Last two things I'll talk on then is Operational Fires Command. What we recognize is at the core level, it's similar to theater. Over 10 or 15 or almost 20 years, we've attrited that core fire support element to bare bones. And the number that sticks in my head for some reason is like, when it all comes down to it, you got about 6 or 7 people there to work the fire's problem set for you. And that's mostly just like current ops at the most. You don't have much planning capability even. You certainly don't have what it takes to work with the theater on penetrating A2AD, and you don't have what it takes to fully shape the division and below fight for a large-scale ground combat type operation. So we see the need for an Operational Fires Command. We're set to test it in warfighters. I think the current one may be in jeopardy, so we'll probably end up doing it in the next one. But we see the need for some kind of operational fires capability, Operational Fires Command. The lost art, and it's interesting that, what is the counter-fire fight? At the core level, what is the counter-fire fight at the division level? And our experience is that most of us have kind of forgotten how to do that. But it's real when the rounds are coming in at you. What our experience is that an FA brigade will normally fight the counter-fire fight, and a DIVARTY would normally be a force field artillery headquarters, do all the planning, and then have the link for the visibility on the counter-fire fight. So, at core and at division, that is how we fight. It's how we fought. That's how we're gonna have to fight, is what we think. It's what all the modeling is showing for if we really fight large-scale ground combat ops. And I'm talking about, a volume and scope and pace of killing in the indirect fires arena to shape for the maneuver direct fire fight. So Operational Fires Command and then DIVARTY is a similar topic. And I'll take any questions on DIVARTY if anybody's got any. I'll close with that. I just skimmed over the wave tops of the modernization efforts across air defense and field artillery. It's material, but then it's much, much more than that with the full spectrum of DOTML, PFP, with respect to all these systems and organizations. I would just say we're in an era where we have to reestablish air defense at tactical echelons. I don't think anybody would argue with anyone who makes that statement. Our job is to figure out how to do that right. We're in an era of the resurgence of targeting. We're in an era of the resurgence of targeting at echelon. We're in an era of establishing long-range precision fires. The rate and pace of change in both air defense and field artillery, it's the most I've ever seen. The best example I can use is down in an organization we call CDID. Most of you in TRADOC know what that is. They handle all these force design updates. On any given year, we'd have 2 or 3 of them. On a busy year, maybe 3 or 4. We're dealing with 12 or 13 or 14 of them right now, and it's a pace that nobody in this business has really seen before. Our job is to get it right, though, and that's what we're committed to. I've actually only skimmed over each of these areas, and again, I'm available anytime after this. So coming weeks or next month, reach out, we'll connect, and we can deep dive any of these topics. And with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, sir. I'll start out. How do you see Fires Modernization impacting maneuver at a BCT level in the close fight?
Okay, yeah, so how will Fires Modernization impact a BCT's close fight? I think a couple different ways. First of all, in large-scale combat ops, if we really have to penetrate A2AD, it's going to take long-range precision fires with the joint team to penetrate, to create a window of maneuverability. A BCT cannot do that by itself, and it's going to take a corps and theater level. So that's maybe the first thing. The second thing for a BCT close fight is, what does the fire support system do for a BCT? Both above it and both, direct support to it. We're talking about fighting the counterfire fight to destroy, suppress enemies' indirect fire systems and missiles. Very, very important. Long-range fires will contribute to that, both at echelons above the brigade and then with the direct support field artillery to the brigade. And then lastly, we're still committed to the close fight. We don't see in any of this modernization a break in the relationship of a direct support field artillery battalion to committed brigades. We do have a principle, and it's similar to other principles, but never leave any artillery in reserve. And so what we recognize is that for a division commander to fight in LSCO, there may be a brigade that's not fully committed for a while. And when that DS battalion is part of a DIVARTY, it enables a division commander to assign a GS mission to what is normally a DS field artillery battalion for a period of time and space. Often it comes with a stipulation, don't expend more than 40% of munitions. And then at some point that battalion goes back to its parent brigade or normal habitual brigade when the brigade's committed. So I hope that answers the question for you.
Thank you. Next question, sir. How do you see with these advances in range and capability, the targeting effort changing at the brigade and division level in LSCO?
Oh, can you say that again?
Targeting in LSCO, sir, how is it changing with all the extended range of the weapons, the hypersonics, all that stuff, sir? Yeah,
so targeting, I said it, we're in an era where there's a resurgence of targeting. Over a number of years, we've kind of, quite frankly, and I'll use the word, it's a strong word, but we've kind of abdicated targeting to the other services, and rightly so. I mean, they have great capabilities. We're going to be joint partners. We're always going to be linked at the hip with our joint service partners. But for the ground component commander to fight in LSCO, we have to have ground component targeting capability. And over about 15 plus years of COIN, we've slowly attrited that away. If we're going to fight in LSCO, we got to have targeting. And it starts with systems of systems analysis. It's not just a fires community issue to resurrect targeting capability. It's across the enterprise, intel and fires, and that's what we owe maneuver commanders, quite frankly.
Thank you, sir. As we saw with Colonel Antal's presentation earlier in the week, the proliferation of sensors across the battlefield is coming rapidly. How do you effectively tie the right sensor to the right shooter with so many more sensors on the battlefield, sir?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think as we're moving forward in the fires world, it's starting with air defense, with this IBCS network. It's air defense systems, but what we're learning from this IBCS system that's plug and play, open architecture, and now we've seen joint sensors, joint airborne sensors actually enter that network and provide track data, to a Patriot, just say. but any sensor, any shooter, we're seeing a proliferation of that. Just think of the explosion in LEO EO/IR satellite capability, and just think about on a pass of a Maxstar satellite, can I download that data, run it through AI, and have it spit out in a fire mission if it visually recognizes something that I want to kill on a HV, high value payoff target list. Those are the kinds of things that an operational fires command, I think, is going to have capability in the future. If we're going to truly be inside enemy decision space and cycle, it's going to be any sensor to include proliferation of space sensors. Titan will help us with that, but how many places are going to have algorithms that are contributing to the resurgence of targeting? And I think it's probably going to be in multiple places. And what we're seeing with some 18th Airborne Corps experimentation, some of that may reside in an operational fires command if they have the capacity to do it. If they've got the capacity to do it, they can probably turn it quicker. So I think we're in a new era. It's a fun era. Not only UAV sensors, not only air breather flown sensors, but space sensors. And then our radars are getting better and better.
Thank you, sir. On the topic of operational fires command, how do you see fires being synchronized at this echelon, particularly multinational fires across an entire theater like the Pacific? Like, how do you see that happening, sir?
Yeah, so I've talked quite a bit about the operational fires command. I'll just, what we're seeing, but the multinational piece is very, very important. What we're seeing, and I'll use Europe as an example, with the theater fires command in Europe, we're seeing integration of much more interaction of coalition partners to solve the issues of interoperability. It takes some folks to work that problem set where I think you're going to need that operational fires command working with the theater to solve that. It's the only way we're going to harness the full capabilities of our coalition partners, quite frankly. So I don't know if that answers that completely, but that's all I got on that one.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Any other questions from in the room?
The room's kind of quiet. We've been keeping track. The question metric out of the room's pretty low. Oh, we got one. Tom Felty.
Sir, with the multi-domain task force, right? With the multi-domain effects group, that the secret sauce element.
Yeah.
Is any of that applicable, or could the division use that as part of its divisional reconnaissance to help with technical reconnaissance and information advantage?
Yeah. So, and I'll try to capture the question so folks can hear online. But so with respect to the MDTF and its I2, formerly known as I2Qs, we're calling it MDEF now, Multi-Domain Effects Battalion. Can it be harnessed or assist or help the division and the division reconnaissance?
Or could the division use a mini one?
Or could the division use a mini one? Yeah. Yeah. And so that's a good question. I think, first of all, like multi-domain operations. So that, and 3.0 is coming, which will help to define that a little bit more. Some people think we got to have multi-domain fire teams. Some people think we got to have multi-domain capable squads. And it's natural because that's what happens when we generate a new concept. And maybe 3.0 will help us iron that out. Some people think that true multi-domain operations, space, cyber, that sort of thing, will really happen a little bit at division, but mostly at core and theater. And so I think it's too early to tell. these two MDTFs that are in the early stages of standing up don't even have their full capabilities yet. And so it's going to take a little time to see if some of that might be helpful more at a division, at the division level. I think if two MDTFs are each working for a theater, there's 3 other ones out there, who are they working for? A corps is a JTF, and then at some point, maybe division main effort, division working a special problem set. It may not be inconceivable that they could tap into an MDTF, but that's not in the original O&O or the O&O that we've started with. But we're learning, and who knows where that'll go. Thanks for the question, Tom. All right, the metrics 1 from the audience so far. Anybody else? Anything online?
No, sir.
Dead. Okay. Hey, so I'll stop there. And I'll close with it's just a tremendous honor to be here at Fort Benning. Pat, as I said before, thanks for the invite. At the end of the day, we are all in this together. And I see it that way. I see us all inextricably linked. And shame on us if we're not, maneuver, fires, intel, protection, sustainment, little mission command. Shame on us, because we're going to need that in the MDO LISCO fight of the future. So thanks.